page you're going to do anthroposophy and Rudolf Steiner. Not just anthroposophy and Rudolf Steiner, but there's a lot of stuff that one has to take account of in that regard. Otherwise you're missing out on probably the leading edge of the changes in natural science fostered by Steiner. You could say that a real spiritual understanding or a magical understanding of the universe requires that we not only have a science of matter, we have a science of spirit, and more crucially, we have a science which artistically brings those two together. Science of matter and of spirit combined. And anyone who wants to engage in the search for this needs to confront anthroposophy. Now, when I do anthroposophical videos, I also expect that a few people from the Anthroposophical Society are going to encounter these, whether in the present or in the far future, I don't know. You know, there's no telling the destiny, you might say, of these videos. They're different artistic means of representing certain kinds of things, and I do them because I believe that material like this should be made available on YouTube in the forms that I'm making it available. Now, the next group of videos is going to come under the general title, Overcoming Rudolf Steiner. And elaborating that is going to be a little difficult. Now, in this I'm not saying we should reject Rudolf Steiner or not pay attention to the works that are done within the Anthroposophical Society or the rest of the things. What I am talking about is something that goes on in our own interior life, and that concerns whether or not our own thinking becomes submissive to the thoughts of Rudolf Steiner. And this is true whether we submit to the thoughts of a parent, a teacher, a loved partner, the people that make the weird stuff that comes out in politics. Doesn't make any difference who we submit our thinking to. All of it should be overcome, because until we think wholly out of ourselves, we are not developing the deepest, richest parts of ourselves as human beings. We are quite capable as thinkers of doing all kinds of things, but we have to trust that that is so. Emerson said, in self-trust, all virtues are comprehended. And it's an important thing to appreciate. So in doing this within the Real Anthroposophy section of my website, I'm concentrating on overcoming Rudolf Steiner, but I'm generalizing that to overcoming the thought of any other human being but our own. It's not a simple thing. So it's not an easy thing. Although the reality is, if we pay attention to who we are, we believe in our own thoughts more than we believe in the thoughts of others. We just don't always know to trust that. We have to experience our ability to trust that, and we have to understand that trusting that can lead us in very queer directions sometimes. Something we might call foolishness. And foolishness generally concerns love. Fools fall in love. Okay? Today, in this first part of the Overcoming Rudolf Steiner, I'm going to be specifically and intentionally foolish. I am concerned about what's going on in what we might call public or political and legal life in the world. A lot of people are. Egypt and Tunisia just have gone through big transformations. Libya is going through another. No one can really predict the ultimate result of this. I'm not going to go a great deal into that. I am going to focus a little bit on the United States and on the events recently in Wisconsin, simply because part of being a human being is being a member of the world in which we live, and we live in a world in which a lot of very strange things are going on. Some of which we like and some of which we don't like, depending on our predilections. But liking or not liking something has very little to do with the truth in it. It's simply a projection of our own feelings. And I've talked about this in other contexts. Here I'm going to nevertheless like and dislike something, and you can see where that can lead you. Now basically, I don't like the fact that in the United States of America, an oligarchy of wealth sits atop what goes on in this country and ruins this country, and because of their grip on the political, they get away with it. It doesn't make any difference which party's in power. Both the Republicans and the Democrats have basically let the oligarchy of wealth ruin the country. Recently, this last Sunday night on the Academy Awards, the guy that won the award for the best documentary, Inside Job, I think was the name of it, said basically that 3 years after the crash of the economy, the responsible parties in the banking and finance industries, none of them have been brought before the bar of justice. None of them. They committed gross, obvious, criminal acts, and they have not even been seriously investigated. There's no congressional committee investigating them. And why is this? This is because of the corrupting influence of wealth on our politics. Now, what's the result of this? Well, the result of this is that human beings in the bottom parts of society are being crapped on by what's above them in the higher parts of the society. And I'm frankly tired of it. But what do? Do we get in a Egyptian-like revolution, which some people would like, and engage in all kinds of dissent and sit around in cities like they're doing in Wisconsin and just absolutely refuse to go on with our lives until the people that try to tell us what to do with all the stupid ways they try to tell us what to do what they do? You don't have to have more than 2 or 3 brain cells to realize that this is an awful thing that's being done. Now, my approach as someone who understands the magical rules of existence and as well the spiritual science of Rudolf Steiner is to ask a particular question, kind of as a cranky curmudgeon. That's what I am. I'm 70 years old. I've seen a lot of life. I was in Berkeley from 1969 to 1983, all through the 70s when Nixon crashed and burned and the Vietnam War went on. And here we are in this situation. And if you do my political stuff, you realize I'm very upset with what the corporations and the wealthy do. Now, my view is that behind nature are communities of spiritual beings. And it's very complicated what they do, particularly with regard to things like earthquakes and tornadoes and all that other stuff that comes down on our lives and makes our lives difficult. So, what, you might say? Well, this is the question I have, and I've been living with this question for some time. And I talked to the spiritual world about it. You could say it's a kind of prayer. And it is literally a kind of prayer, but because I'm cranky sometimes, I say, I really don't think that in spite of the fact that the wisest wisdom, the greatest whatevers, the great spiritual beings of the cosmos, you go by Steiner and all the rest of that do all this wondrous stuff, really know what they're doing in a certain sense. I don't think they know what they're doing. But I'm going to pause now and come back.